Nora, I need you to promise me something, Eli whispered, his grip weak but insistent. I leaned closer, my heart racing. The hospital room's sterile smell faded as I focused on my husband's pale face. Anything, my love. What is it? Take care of the boys and don't let them lose themselves. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I squeezed his hand, forcing a smile. Of course I will. But you'll be there too, Eli. We'll do it together. He shook his head, a sad smile playing on his lips. We both know that's not true, Nora. Promise me. I promise, I choked out, tears blurring my vision. Eli's eyes closed, his breathing shallow. The monitor's steady beep became a haunting rhythm, marking the precious seconds we had left. My name is Nora, and this was the moment my world shattered. I stood there, numb, as doctors rushed in. Their voices faded to a dull roar as I watched them work on Eli. It had all happened so fast. The diagnosis, the rapid decline, and now, this. Time of death, 3:47 p.m., a voice announced. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to CDR. Patel, her eyes filled with sympathy. I'm so sorry, Nora. We did everything we could. I nodded mechanically, unable to form words. My mind raced, thinking of our sons, Jasper and Caleb. How would I tell them? How could I possibly keep my promise to Eli when I felt so lost myself? As if summoned by my thoughts, the door burst open. Jasper strode in, his face a mask of anger and grief.
Mom.
What happened? Why didn't you call me sooner? I reached for him, but he brushed past me to Eli's bedside. Dad? Dad, come on, wake up. Jasper, I said softly, touching his arm. He's gone, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. He whirled on me, eyes blazing. This is your fault. You should have made him go to the doctor sooner. You should have. That's enough, a quiet voice interrupted. Caleb stood in the doorway, his artist's hands clenched at his sides. This is a mom's fault, Jasper. You know that. Jasper's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. He collapsed into a chair, head in his hands. I can't believe he's gone. I moved to comfort him, but Caleb beat me to it. He knelt beside his brother, one hand on Jasper's back. I know, Jas. I can't either. Watching them, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could keep my promise to Eli after all. Maybe we could get through this together. But then Jasper looked up, his eyes hard. What happens now? With the house, the money, everything. And just like that, the moment shattered. I stared at my eldest son, shocked by his questions so soon after his father's death. Jasper, that's not important right now. We need to. Not important, he scoffed. Dad worked his whole life for us. We deserve to know what he left behind. Caleb stood up, disgust evident on his face. Are you serious right now? Dad just died, and you're worried about money? Jasper rose to face his brother. Someone has to think practically. We can't all be starving artists like you, Caleb. Stop it, both of you, I said firmly, stepping between them. This isn't the time or place. We need to support each other, not fight. But as I looked at their faces, Jasper's calculating, Caleb's hurt, I realized this was just the beginning. Eli's last words echoed in my mind. Don't let them lose themselves. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. We'll discuss everything later. For now, let's focus on saying goodbye to your father. As we gathered around Eli's bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that our family was balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. I placed my hand on Eli's still chest, my wedding ring glinting under the harsh hospital lights. I'll keep my promise, I whispered, no matter what it takes. Little did I know just how much that promise would cost me in the days to come. As we left the hospital, the weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders. I was a widow, a mother, and now the keeper of secrets that could tear our family apart. But I was also a fighter, and I would do whatever it took to honor Eli's last wish and keep our family together, even if it meant facing the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life. The tension in the room was palpable as I unfolded the crisp legal document. Jasper's eyes bored into me, his jaw clenched. Caleb sat quietly, his gaze darting between his brother and me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "I'll read the key points of your father's will," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "The family home and the majority of our savings are left to me, to manage as I see fit." Jasper's fist clenched on the armrest. I continued before he could interrupt. "For you boys, there's a modest trust fund. It's designed to help with education or starting a business, but it's not substantial. That's it." Jasper exploded, leaping to his feet. "After everything Dad built, that's all we get?" I met his gaze, unflinching. "Your father worked hard to provide for us, Jasper. He wanted to ensure we'd be taken care of, but also that you'd make your own way in the world." Caleb spoke up, his voice soft. "It makes sense, Jazz. Mom needs security and we're young. We can build our own lives." Jasper rounded on his brother. "Of course you'd say that. You don't care about money, mister. Starving artist. Some of us have ambition." "Ambition?" Caleb's eyes flashed. "Is that what you call wanting a handout?" "Enough," I interjected, stepping between them. "This is exactly what your father wanted to avoid. He believed in both of you, in your abilities to succeed on your own merits." Jasper scoffed.
Right.
"So he leaves everything to you, and we get scraps. How is that fair?" I felt my patience wearing thin. "Life isn't always fair, Jasper. Your father trusted me to make the right decisions for this family. If you need help, I'm here. But I won't simply hand over a fortune you haven't earned." "You're unbelievable," Jasper spat. "Dad's barely cold, and you're already playing the stern matriarch. I bet you influenced him to write the will this way." The accusation stung, but I held my ground. "That's enough. Your father made his own decisions. I'm honoring his wishes, whether you like it or not." Caleb stood, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Mom's right, Jazz. This isn't helping anyone. We should be grateful for what we have, not fighting over money." Jasper's laugh was bitter. "Oh, spare me the saintly act, Caleb. You're just happy because you know Mom will keep funding your little art projects. Some of us have real goals." I watched the hurt flash across Caleb's face and felt my anger rising. "That's unfair, Jasper. Your brother's work is valuable, even if it's not measured in dollars. Your father was proud of both of you for different reasons." "Well, he had a funny way of showing it," Jasper muttered. He paced the room, running a hand through his hair. "What am I supposed to tell Savannah? We had plans, big plans." I sighed, remembering Eli's warnings about Jasper's girlfriend. "Your relationship isn't dependent on your inheritance, Jasper. If Savannah truly loves you—" "Don't," he cut me off. "Don't you dare lecture me about love. You have no idea what Savannah and I have." The room fell silent, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy between us. I looked at my sons, Jasper, seething with resentment, and Caleb, a mix of sadness and resignation on his face. How had we come to this? "Listen," I said softly, "I know this is hard. We're all grieving, and emotions are running high. But we need to stick together. Your father wanted us to support each other, not tear ourselves apart over money." Jasper's shoulders slumped, some of the fight leaving him. I had plans, Mom. I thought I'd be able to start my own business, make Dad proud." I moved to him, placing a hand on his arm. "You still can, sweetheart. The trust fund is there to help you get started. And I'm here to support you, always. But it has to be earned, not handed to you." He shrugged off my touch. "Whatever. I need some air." Without another word, he stormed out of the room. Caleb and I stood in silence for a moment. "He'll come around, Mom," Caleb said finally. "He's just hurting." I nodded, hoping he was right. "I know. I wish your father was here. He'd know what to say." Caleb hugged me, and I felt tears prick my eyes. "You're doing great, Mom. Dad would be proud of how you're handling this." As we broke apart, I caught sight of Eli's photo on the mantel. His kind eyes seemed to bore into me, reminding me of his last words. "Don't let them lose themselves." I hope you're right, Caleb, I whispered, because I have a feeling this is just the beginning of our troubles. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from Jasper. This isn't over. Savannah and I won't stand for this. I showed it to Caleb, who shook his head. What are we going to do? I squared my shoulders, a plan already forming. Whatever it takes to keep this family together. Your father trusted me with that task, and I won't let him down. As Caleb left to start dinner, I sat heavily in Eli's old armchair. The weight of responsibility settled on me like a cloak. I had no idea what challenges lay ahead, but I knew one thing for certain. I would fight with everything I had to honor Eli's last wish and protect our family, even if it meant going to war with my own son. The doorbell chimed, its cheerful tone at odds with the tension that had settled over our home since the reading of Eli's will. I smoothed my shirt and took a deep breath before opening the door. Mom, I want you to meet Savannah, Jasper said, his arm around a stunning blonde woman. Savannah's smile was dazzling, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Mrs. Thompson, it's so lovely to finally meet you. Jasper's told me so much about you. I forced a smile, trying to ignore the warning bells ringing in my head. Please call me Nora. Come in, both of you. As they entered, I couldn't help but notice Savannah's designer outfit and the way her eyes darted around our modest living room, assessing everything. Jasper seemed oblivious, his face alight with pride as he watched her. Can I get you anything to drink? I offered, leading them to the couch. Just water for me, Savannah replied, her tone suggesting that anything else would be beneath her. I'm on a very strict diet. I bit back a retort and headed to the kitchen, where Caleb was making coffee. Is that her? He whispered, peering around the doorframe. I nodded, filling a glass with water. Be nice, I warned, for Jasper's sake. When we returned to the living room, Savannah was examining the family photos on the mantel. Oh, Jasper, she cooed, you are such an adorable child. It's a shame you don't have any recent professional photos. They'd look so much more polished. I saw Caleb's jaw clench, but he managed a polite smile as he set down the coffee tray. I like our family photos. They capture real moments. Savannah's laugh was like tinkling glass. Oh, of course. But don't you think it's time for something a bit more sophisticated? Especially now that Jasper is about to start his own business. I raised an eyebrow at my son. Oh, I didn't realize you had concrete plans, Jasper. He shifted uncomfortably. Well, I'm still working out the details. But Savannah's been really supportive and has some great connections. That's right, Savannah chimed in, her voice syrupy sweet. My father knows some wonderful investors. Of course, they usually prefer to work with people who have substantial assets of their own. The implication hung in the air, heavy and accusatory. I felt my patience wearing thin. Jasper has a trust fund, I said evenly. It's meant to help him get started in life, including business ventures. Savannah's smile never wavered. Oh, how quaint. But surely, as Eli's widow, you have access to more significant resources? I mean, Jasper is the eldest son. It's only natural that he'd want to continue his father's legacy in grand style. I saw Caleb tense beside me, ready to jump to my defense. But this was my battle to fight. Eli's legacy, I said slowly, meeting Savannah's gaze, was about more than money. It was about integrity, hard work, and family. Those are the values we cherish in this house. Savannah's eyes narrowed slightly. Of course. But surely you want Jasper to succeed? To have the best of everything. What I want, I replied, my voice firm, is for both my sons to find their own paths and build lives they can be proud of, not lives dictated by societal expectations or external pressures. The room fell silent. Jasper looked between Savannah and me, confusion and frustration warring on his face. Mom, he started, but Savannah cut him off with a gentle touch on his arm. It's all right, darling, she said, her voice dripping with false understanding. I'm sure your mother will come around once she sees how successful you'll be. After all, what parent doesn't want the best for their child? I felt my temper flare. The best isn't always the most expensive or flashy, Savannah. Sometimes it's the hard-won victories and the lessons learned along the way. Savannah's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing a flash of contempt before her saccharine smile returned. Well, we all have different definitions of success, I suppose. Jasper, sweetheart, we should go. We don't want to be late for our dinner reservation. As they stood to leave, I caught a glimpse of the person Jasper used to be, uncertain, looking to me for guidance. But then Savannah's hand slipped into his, and his expression hardened. We'll talk later, Mom, he said, his tone clipped. After they left, Caleb and I sat in stunned silence. Well, Caleb finally said, that was a disaster. I finished, rubbing my temples. She's trouble, Mom. Can't Jasper see that? I sighed, thinking of Eli's warning. Love, or what we think is love, can blind us to a lot of things. But you're right. She's not here for Jasper. She's here for what she thinks he can provide. Caleb leaned forward, his expression serious. What are we going to do? I stood, walking to the window to watch Jasper's car disappear down the street. We fight for him, Caleb. We fight to remind him of who he really is, not who Savannah wants him to be. As I turned back to my younger son, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Eli had trusted me to keep our family together, to prevent our boys from losing themselves. It wouldn't be easy, especially with Savannah's influence, but I was ready for the challenge. We'll start by showing Jasper that true success isn't measured in dollar signs, I said, a plan already forming in my mind. And we'll make sure Savannah understands that this family isn't her personal piggy bank. Caleb nodded, a determined glint in his eye. I'm with you, Mom. All the way. As we began to strategize, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a long and difficult battle. But with Eli's memory guiding me and Caleb by my side, I knew we stood a fighting chance. The war for Jasper's soul and our family's future had begun. The cafe bustled with the lunchtime crowd, but I barely noticed the noise. My eyes were fixed on the glittering diamond ring on Jasper's finger as he fidgeted nervously across the table. Mom, We have some news, he began, glancing at Savannah, who beamed triumphantly beside him. My heart sank. I forced a smile, already dreading what was coming. What is it, sweetheart? Savannah thrust her left hand forward, a massive diamond catching the light. We're engaged, she squealed, her voice carrying across the cafe. I swallowed hard, fighting to keep my expression neutral. That's quite a surprise. Congratulations. Jasper's face fell slightly at my lukewarm response. Aren't you happy for us, Mom? Before I could answer, Savannah jumped in. Of course she is, darling. She's just shocked by how quickly you swept me off my feet. She turned to me, her eyes glinting. It was so romantic, Nora. Jasper proposed at the country club, with a string quartet and everything. I raised an eyebrow at my son. The country club? I didn't realize you were a member. Jasper shifted uncomfortably. Well, Savannah's family are members. They've been very generous. I see, I said, my tone carefully measured. And when did all this happen? Just last night. Savannah gushed. We couldn't wait to tell you. And of course, to start planning the wedding. It's going to be the event of the season. I felt a headache coming on. That sounds expensive. Jasper leaned forward, his expression earnest. That's actually why we wanted to talk to you, Mom. We were hoping, well, with Dad's estate and everything, we'll need to access some of the funds, Savannah finished bluntly. For the wedding, of course, and to help us get started. Jasper's business plans are so exciting, and with the right investment. I held up a hand, cutting her off. Slow down, please. Jasper, can we talk privately for a moment? Savannah's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. Of course. I'll just powder my nose. Don't talk about me too much while I'm gone. She sashayed away, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume in her wake. As soon as she was out of earshot, I leaned in close to Jasper. What are you doing? I hissed. You've known her for barely 2 months. Jasper's jaw set stubbornly. I love her, Mom. She understands me. supports my ambitions. Why can't you be happy for me? Because this isn't you, Jasper, I pleaded. Lavish proposals? Country clubs? What happened to the son who wanted to build his business from the ground up, to make his own way? Maybe I've grown up, he snapped. Maybe I've realized there's nothing wrong with wanting the finer things in life. Dad would have understood. The mention of Eli felt like a physical blow. Your father worked hard for everything he had. He didn't expect handouts or shortcuts. Jasper's eyes flashed. Is that what you think this is? A shortcut? I'm trying to secure our future, Mom. Savannah's connections could open doors for all of us. I shook my head, feeling the distance between us grow. And what does Savannah get out of this arrangement? What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm worried, Jasper. This is all happening so fast, and the way she talks about money. Stop. Jasper cut me off, his voice low and angry. I don't want to hear it. Savannah loves me for who I am, not what I have. But we do need your help to get started. It's my inheritance too, Mom. I have a right to it. Before I could respond, Savannah returned, sliding gracefully into her seat. Did I miss anything important? She asked, her tone innocent but her eyes sharp. Jasper took her hand, his expression hardening. Just filling Mom in on our plans. She's processing the news. Savannah's smile didn't waver. Of course, it's a lot to take in. But you'll help us, won't you, Nora? After all, family is everything. I looked between them, seeing the determination in Jasper's eyes and the calculation in Savannah's. In that moment, I made a decision. I'm sorry, I said firmly, but I can't give you access to the estate funds. The trusts are set up for specific purposes, and a lavish wedding isn't one of them. The silence that followed was deafening. Savannah's mask slipped for a moment, revealing a flash of fury before she composed herself. Jasper stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I can't believe this. You're really going to stand in the way of my happiness? Jasper, please. No, he cut me off. I've heard enough. Come on, Savannah. We're leaving. As they stormed out of the cafe, leaving me alone at the table, I felt a mix of emotions wash over me. Grief for the son I felt I was losing, anger at Savannah's manipulations, and a deep, gnawing fear that I was failing to keep my promise to Eli. But beneath it all, a steely resolve began to form. I wouldn't let Savannah destroy our family or lead Jasper astray. As I gathered my things to leave, I made a silent vow. I would fight for my son, for our family's legacy, and for the values Eli and I had always held dear. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready for war. The annual Thompson family barbecue had always been a joyous occasion, but this year, tension hung in the air like a storm cloud. I stood at the grill, mechanically flipping burgers, my mind racing with worry about the inevitable confrontation looming. Caleb appeared at my side, his voice low. Mom, are you sure inviting Jasper and Savannah was a good idea? I sighed, wiping my brow. They're family, Caleb. We can't shut them out, no matter how difficult things have become. As if on cue, a sleek sports car pulled into the driveway. Jasper emerged, looking uncomfortable in an outfit far too formal for a backyard barbecue. Savannah stepped out behind him, her designer sundress and oversized sunglasses a stark contrast to the casual attire of our relatives. Showtime, Caleb muttered, squeezing my arm supportively before moving to greet them. I watched as Savannah air-kissed Caleb's cheeks, her eyes already scanning the gathering. Jasper hung back, his posture tense. When his gaze met mine, I saw a flicker of the son I knew, uncertain, almost apologetic. But then Savannah's hand slipped into his, and his expression hardened. The next hour passed in a haze of forced small talk and thinly veiled tension. I could feel Savannah's eyes on me, calculating her next move. It came as I was serving dessert. Nora, darling, Savannah's voice rang out, silencing the chatter around us. I've been meaning to ask, have you given any more thought to our little chat about the wedding funds? I froze, acutely aware of every eye turning towards us. Savannah, this isn't the time or place. Oh, but when is? she pressed, her tone sickeningly sweet. You've been avoiding us for weeks. I think the family deserves to know how you're holding Jasper back from his potential. Jasper shifted uncomfortably. Savannah, maybe we should. No, Jasper, she cut him off. Your mother needs to understand what she's doing. Do you all know, she addressed the gathering, that Nora is refusing to release funds that rightfully belong to Jasper? Funds that could help him start his business, secure our future. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I felt my cheeks burn with a mix of anger and embarrassment. That's not true, I said firmly. Jasper has access to his trust fund, which was set up specifically to help him get started in life. What he's asking for goes far beyond that. Savannah's eyes narrowed. And who are you to decide what he deserves? Eli would be ashamed of how you're treating his son. The mention of Eli's name was the final straw. I opened my mouth to retort, but Caleb beat me to it. That's enough, he said, his voice quiet but steely. You have no right to speak for our father, Savannah. You didn't know him. Savannah turned on him, her mask slipping to reveal the venom beneath. Oh, the artist speaks. Tell me, Caleb, how does it feel to mooch off your mother while your brother tries to make something of himself? Gasps echoed around the yard. Caleb stood his ground unflinching. I work hard for everything I have. And unlike some people, I don't measure success by the size of my bank account or the brand of my clothes. How dare you? Savannah shrieked. Jasper, are you going to let them talk to me like this? All eyes turned to Jasper, who looked torn between loyalty to Savannah and the family he'd known his whole life. I don't. Choose, Jasper, Savannah demanded. It's me or them. Your future or your past. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched my son, my heart breaking as I saw the conflict play out across his face. Finally, he spoke. I'm sorry, Mom, he said softly, but Savannah's right. You're holding me back. I can't keep living in Dad's shadow, trying to live up to your impossible standards. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back, steadying myself against the picnic table. Jasper, please. But he was already turning away, Savannah's triumphant smile gleaming in the afternoon sun. We're leaving, she announced. And don't expect an invitation to the wedding. Clearly, you're not supportive of our happiness. As they stormed off, leaving a wake of shocked relatives behind them, I felt my world crumbling. Caleb's arm around my shoulders was the only thing keeping me upright. It's okay, Mom, he whispered. We'll figure this out. But as I watched Jasper's car disappear down the street, I wasn't so sure. Eli's last words echoed in my mind. Don't let them lose themselves. I'd failed him. I'd failed Jasper. As the stunned guests began to disperse, murmuring apologies and awkward goodbyes, I made a silent vow. This wasn't over. I wouldn't give up on Jasper, no matter what it took. Savannah may have won this battle, but the war for my son's soul was far from over. I turned to Caleb, my resolve strengthening. We need a plan, I said. And I think it's time we did some digging into Savannah's past. Something tells me there's more to her story than she's letting on. Caleb nodded, a determined glint in his eye. I'm with you, Mom. All the way. As we began to clean up the remnants of the disastrous barbecue, I felt a strange mix of despair and determination. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain. I would fight for my family with everything I had. Eli's legacy and Jasper's future depended on it. The manila envelope felt heavy in my hands as I stared at the return address of the law firm. My heart raced as I tore it open, dreading what I might find inside. As I scanned the legal jargon, 2 words jumped out at me: contest and will. My worst fears were confirmed. Jasper and Savannah were taking legal action to challenge Eli's will. I sank into my chair, the room spinning. How had it come to this? My own son, willing to drag our family through a legal battle for money he hadn't earned. Mom, Caleb's voice snapped me back to reality. What's wrong? I handed him the letter wordlessly. His face darkened as he read. We need to confront them, he said, his voice tight with anger. This has gone too far. I nodded, steeling myself for the battle ahead. Call Jasper. Tell him we need to meet. All of us. An hour later, We sat in tense silence around the dining room table. Jasper refused to meet my eyes, while Savannah wore a smug smile that made my blood boil. "I assume you know why we're here," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. Savannah leaned forward, her eyes glinting. "To finally see reason and give Jasper what he deserves?" I ignored her, focusing on my son. "Jasper, look at me. Is this really what you want? To tear our family apart over money?" He shifted uncomfortably. "It's not just about the money, Mom. It's about fairness. Dad would have wanted. Don't you dare presume to know what your father would have wanted." I cut him off, my voice sharp. "Eli worked hard for everything we have. He believed in earning your way, not taking shortcuts." Savannah scoffed. "Please." Eli was just too short-sighted to see Jasper's potential. "Unlike you, we have ambition." Caleb slammed his hand on the table, making us all jump. "Ambition? Is that what you call manipulating my brother and trying to steal from our family?" "How dare you?" Savannah shrieked. "Jasper, are you going to let them talk to me like this?" But Jasper remained silent, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. I took a deep breath, centering myself. "Before this goes any further, there's something you both need to see." I pulled out a stack of documents I'd gathered over the past weeks. Bank statements, credit reports, and a detailed history of Savannah's past relationships and financial dealings. "What is this?" Jasper asked, his voice wary. "The truth," I replied, spreading the papers across the table. "About Savannah's past and her real motivations for being with you." Savannah's face paled as she recognized some of the documents. "Where did you get those?" "That's private information." I met her gaze steadily. "When you threaten my family, nothing is off limits. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate the woman trying to manipulate my son?" Jasper leaned forward, his eyes scanning the papers. "Mom, what are you talking about?" "Savannah has a history, Jasper. A pattern of attaching herself to wealthy men, draining their resources, and moving on to the next target. She's done it 3 times before you." The color drained from Jasper's face as he turned to Savannah. "Is this true?" She laughed nervously. "Of course not, darling. Your mother is clearly desperate. She's making things up to turn you against me." But I could see the doubt creeping into Jasper's eyes. "Then how do you explain these bank transfers? The maxed-out credit cards in other men's names?" Savannah's mask finally cracked. Her eyes narrowed as she hissed. "You have no idea what I've been through. I deserve a good life, and I'll do whatever it takes to get it." The room fell silent as the weight of her admission sank in. Jasper stared at her, shock and betrayal written across his face. "Jasper," I said softly, reaching for his hand. "I know you thought you were in love, but this isn't love. It's manipulation." He pulled away, standing abruptly. "I need some air." As he stormed out, Savannah turned on me, her face contorted with rage. "You've ruined everything. I'll make you pay for this." Caleb stepped between us. "I think it's time for you to leave, Savannah. For good." As she gathered her things, spewing threats and insults, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. The battle was won, but at what cost? I found Jasper in the backyard, sitting on the old swing set where he and Caleb had played as children. He looked up as I approached, his eyes red-rimmed. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I've been such a fool." I sat beside him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "We all make mistakes, sweetheart. The important thing is learning from them." He nodded, leaning into me. "I don't know how to fix this. I've hurt you, Caleb, our whole family. We'll figure it out together," I assured him. "That's what family does." As we sat there, the weight of the past months finally lifting, I thought of Eli. I hoped, wherever he was, he could see that our family was finding its way back to each other. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were wounds to heal, trust to rebuild. But as I held my son, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had weathered the storm and emerged stronger for it. The real work of healing our family was just beginning, but for the first time in months, I felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, we would honor Eli's memory and forge a new path forward, one built on love, understanding, and the unbreakable bonds of family. The coffee shop buzzed with mid-morning chatter, but I barely noticed as I stared at the file Miriam had just handed me. My hands trembled slightly as I flipped through the pages, each revelation more shocking than the last. "I can't believe you found all this," I whispered, looking up at my friend's grim face. Miriam leaned forward, her voice low. "It wasn't easy, Nora. Savannah's been careful, but she's left a trail. 3 wealthy families, 3 broken engagements, and a lot of missing money." I shook my head, still processing the information. "How did we not see this sooner?" "She's good at what she does," Miriam replied. "But everyone slips up eventually. The question is, what are you going to do with this information?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Jasper. "We need to talk. Can you meet me at the house?" I showed Miriam the message, a mix of hope and dread churning in my stomach. I guess I'm about to find out. As I pulled into the driveway of our family home, I saw Jasper's car already parked. My son stood on the porch, looking more like the boy I raised than the angry young man he'd become in recent months. "Mom," he said as I approached, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. For everything." I pulled him into a hug, feeling his shoulders shake as he finally let go of the facade he'd been maintaining. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're going to fix this." Inside, we sat at the kitchen table where we'd shared so many family meals. Jasper's eyes widened as I placed Miriam's file in front of him. "What's this?" he asked warily. "The truth about Savannah," I replied gently. "And it's worse than we thought." As Jasper read through the documents, his face cycled through a range of emotions: disbelief, anger, and finally, a deep sadness. "I've been such a fool," he whispered, pushing the file away. "How could I not see it?" I reached across the table, taking his hand. "Love can blind us, Jasper. But it's not too late to make things right." He nodded, squeezing my hand. "What do we do now?" Before I could answer, the front door burst open. Savannah stormed in, her face a mask of fury. "What is this?" she shrieked, waving a piece of paper. "A restraining order? You think you can just throw me away like trash?" Jasper stood, placing himself between Savannah and me. "It's over, Savannah. I know everything." She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You don't know anything. You're nothing without me, Jasper. A pathetic mama's boy who can't stand on his own 2 feet." I watched my son's back stiffen, but his voice remained calm. "That's where you're wrong. I'm a Thompson. We don't need to steal or manipulate to succeed. We work hard and earn our place in the world." Savannah's eyes narrowed as she turned to me. "This is your doing, isn't it? You've poisoned him against me." "No, Savannah," I said, standing to join Jasper. "You did that all on your own." Her composure cracked, desperation seeping through. "You can't do this to me. I'll ruin you. I'll tell everyone how you mistreated me, how you tried to keep Jasper from his inheritance." "Go ahead," Jasper replied. "But first, you might want to take a look at this." He slid Miriam's file across the table. Savannah's face paled as she flipped through the pages. "How? Where did you get this?" she stammered. "It doesn't matter," I said firmly. "What matters is that it's over. You're going to leave my family alone, or we'll make sure every wealthy family in the state knows exactly who you are and what you've done." Savannah's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the scared, desperate woman behind the manipulative facade. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I had nothing. I was nobody. I just wanted a chance at a better life." Jasper's voice was gentle but firm. "There are better ways, Savannah. Honest ways. I hope you find them, but it won't be with us." As Caleb escorted a defeated Savannah out, Jasper turned to me, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I don't know how to thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to." I pulled him close, feeling the weight of the past months finally lifting. "That's what family does, sweetheart. We fight for each other, no matter what." As we stood there, I thought of Eli. I could almost feel his presence, his approval warming the room. We had weathered the storm, emerged stronger, and kept our promise to him. What now? Jasper asked, his voice muffled against my shoulder. I smiled, a plan already forming. Now we rebuild. Together. As a family. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were wounds to heal, trust to rebuild. But as I held my son, surrounded by the memories of our family's love and strength, I knew we would face whatever challenges came our way. Eli's last words echoed in my mind. Don't let them lose themselves. We had come close, but in the end, we had found our way back to who we truly were. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all. The gallery buzzed with excitement, a sea of well-dressed patrons admiring the vibrant canvases that adorned the walls. I stood in the center of it all, my heart swelling with pride as I watched Caleb confidently discuss his work with an influential art critic. He's really made it, hasn't he? Jasper's voice came from beside me, a hint of awe in his tone. I turned to my eldest son, noting the genuine happiness in his eyes.
He has.
And so have you, in your own way. Jasper nodded, his gaze drifting to the small business cards he held, advertising his new ethical investment firm. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad things turned out the way they did, even the hard parts. I squeezed his arm, remembering the tumultuous journey that had brought us here. Your father would be so proud of both of you. As if summoned by our conversation, Caleb joined us, his face flushed with excitement. Mom, Jazz, you won't believe it. The Guggenheim wants to feature my work in their next exhibition. Jasper pulled his brother into a bear hug, their laughter drawing smiles from nearby guests. I always knew you had it in you, little bro. As I watched my son celebrate, I felt a presence beside me. Miriam handed me a glass of champagne, her eyes twinkling. You did it, Nora. You kept your promise to Eli. I took a sip, letting the bubbles dance on my tongue. We did it together. I couldn't have gotten through this without you, Miriam. She waved off my gratitude. That's what friends are for. Now, are you ready for the surprise? Before I could ask what she meant, Caleb clinked his glass, calling for attention. Everyone, if I could have your attention, please. There's someone very special I'd like to honor tonight. The crowd hushed as Caleb gestured for me to join him. Confused, I made my way to his side. This woman, Caleb began, his voice thick with emotion, is not just my mother. She's the backbone of our family, the one who held us together when we were falling apart. Mom, this is for you. He pulled a cloth off a nearby easel, revealing a stunning portrait. I gasped, recognizing myself and Eli, painted in Caleb's distinctive style. We were seated on our old porch swing, surrounded by swirls of color that seemed to pulse with life and love. It's called Legacy of Love, Caleb explained, because that's what you and Dad gave us. A foundation of love that could weather any storm. Tears blurred my vision as Jasper joined us, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. We owe you everything, Mom. Thank you for not giving up on us. The gallery erupted in applause, but I barely heard it. In that moment, I was transported back to Eli's hospital room, hearing his final request, take care of the boys, and don't let them lose themselves. As I hugged my sons, I knew I had fulfilled that promise. We had all lost our way for a time, but in the end, we had found our way back to each other and to the values that truly mattered. Later that night, as the last guests trickled out, I found myself alone in front of Caleb's portrait. I traced the lines of Eli's face, remembering the warmth of his smile, the strength of his embrace. We did it, my love, I whispered. Our boys are going to be just fine. A gentle breeze rustled through the gallery, carrying with it the scent of Eli's favorite aftershave. For a moment, I could almost feel his presence, his approval warming me from within. Jasper and Caleb appeared on either side of me, each taking one of my hands. What do you say we head home? Jasper suggested. I think this calls for a family dinner. Maybe we could make Dad's famous lasagna? Caleb grinned. Only if Mom promises not to burn the garlic bread this time. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years.
Deal.
But you're both on dish duty. As we left the gallery, arm in arm, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. We had weathered the storm of grief, greed, and betrayal and emerged stronger for it. Eli's legacy lived on, not in material possessions or grand gestures, but in the love that bound us together. In the end, that was the greatest inheritance he could have left us. The cool night air kissed my cheeks as we walked to the car, the stars twinkling overhead. I looked at my sons, Jasper, once lost but now found, his ambition tempered by wisdom, and Caleb, his talent finally recognized, his compassion a beacon for us all. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. We had come full circle, from the depths of loss to the heights of redemption. And though the road had been hard, I wouldn't have changed a single step. As we drove home, the city lights blurring into a tapestry of possibility, I silently renewed my vow to Eli. I would continue to nurture the legacy of love we had built together, guiding our family toward a future bright with promise and rich with the values we held dear. The journey wasn't over. It never truly would be. But with the strength of our bond and the lessons we'd learned, I knew that whatever life threw our way, we would face it as we always had, together, as a family. And in that knowledge, I found a joy so pure, so complete, that it filled every corner of my being. This, I realized, was the true meaning of Eli's last wish. Not just to keep the boys from losing themselves, but to help us all find our way back to what really mattered. As we pulled into our driveway, the porch light a welcoming beacon, I smiled. We were home, in every sense of the word. And the best was yet to come.